Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for participating in this afternoon's virtual WebEx conference related to Commission Order number 2023-490, which was published by the Commission on July 13th, 2023. In Commission Order number 2023-490, the Commissioners instructed the Chief Clerk or her designee to conduct a status conference with the parties for the purpose of amending the procedural schedule to provide the parties the opportunity to respond or reply to the third-party consultant's report. The procedural schedule may include dates by which discovery, including depositions, must be completed, dates by which responsive testimony must be filed, and any other dates the Chief Clerk or her designee and the parties believe are needed to proceed with the hearing scheduled to receive the third-party consultant's report. I failed to mention that, today's virtual WebEx conference relates to docket numbers 2023-16E and 2023-17E, and those docket numbers reference Duke Energy Carolina LLC's and Duke Energy Progress LLC's 2023 avoided cost proceeding pursuant to SC Code annotated section 58-41-20, section 8. So, I'm Jocelyn Boyd. I'm employed by the Public Service Commission. In the hearing room today with me are Melissa Purvis, our live stream producer, and Ms. Gwendolyn Richardson, our WebEx whiz today. Okay, so I'll now proceed to ask who is participating in our virtual conference today. And what I'm going to try to do, everyone, is I've printed pages from our docket management system that lists the applicants, the interveners, the representatives, and the participant's name, and those names and the participant's name, and try to concisely ask you who you're representing, appearing on behalf of, using both dockets, the information in both documents. So I'll begin with Duke Energy Carolinas LLC and Duke Energy Progress. May I ask who's appearing today?
Hey, Ms. Boyd. This is Sam Wellborn on behalf of Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress. With me on the line, it looks like Brett Bright-Short and Tracy DeMarco McGuire Woods are also on the line.
Thank you so much, Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress. So now I will move to the tab in the DMS that is titled Interveners. So, Carolinas Clean Energy Business Association appears in both dockets. May I ask who represents SECEBA?
Jocelyn, this is Richard Witt here for SECEBA in both dockets. And John Burns, the General Counsel of SECEBA, is going to try to join us also.
Okay, let me know, Mr. Witt, I'll ask Ms. Richardson, our WebEx whiz, to prompt me when Mr. Burns appears. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So then we'll move next to the South Carolina Coastal Conservation League, or CCL, and Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, SACE.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. This is Kate Mixon for SACE and CCL, and Emma Clancy is on the line as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mixon and Ms. Clancy. All right. So Converse Energy, according to the docket management system, appears in docket 2023-16E solely. Who represents Converse Energy Incorporated?
Charlie Terraini for Converse Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Terraini. Next, South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs is listed. And then we have the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff.
Ms. Boyd, this is Ben Mustian.
Mr. Mustian, you're fading a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we go.
If you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Rainey is on with me representing ORS.
Wonderful. Then I think those are all of the interveners that are listed in the docket management system. Did I miss anyone? Or a representative that I failed to recognize a representative? Great. The participant listed in the docket, in both dockets, is London Economics International, LLC. Okay. I think that concludes the roll call this afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to follow the same procedure. ORS and I think, say, CCL are familiar with what I did the last time we had this conference, which was about a week ago or maybe 2 weeks. I'm going to provide you with the information that I found in docket numbers 2021-89E and 2021-90E. And of course, those dockets reference Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress's 2021 avoided costs proceedings. Then we will move to my application of that same time frame and apply it to the dockets from this year, 2023-16 and 17E. And then I would like for you all to state what your preferences are as it relates to the procedural schedule and the consultant's report. Okay. Live stream producer Purvis, would you please show what appears on the document camera to the, thank you so much. Can everyone see? All right. Just based on my review of the 2021 dockets, of course, the merits hearing for those dockets was held August 21st, 2021. And it appears that the schedule for the deadline for the consultant's report to be filed with the commission back then was August 21st. There were 21 days between August the 2nd and August the 23rd. The discovery deadline back in 2021 for the two dockets was September 10th. So September 10th is 18 days after August 23rd. Next, the party's responsive testimony and or exhibits was due by September 15th, 2021 by 12 o'clock noon. That was 5 days after September 10th. Finally, the commissioners heard the testimony and cross-examination of the consultant and presentation of the party's responsive testimony on September 16th, 2021, 1 day after the September 15th deadline for the party's responsive testimony and exhibits. So now we'll move. All I did was take those time frames over in the right-hand column and apply them to those dates which have not already been established in the commission's records. The merits hearing is, of course, for docket numbers 2023-16E and 2023-17E is scheduled to begin next Monday, August 14th. The consultant's report due date, which is listed in the pre-filed testimony letter, is September 11, 2023, which, according to my calculations, is 28 days after August 14th. Oh, Mr. Terraini, you have a question. Thank you, Ms. Richardson, because I can't see your...
I'll wait until you're finished.
Okay. So what I did, as I said, is I applied the same time, the dates after the prior event to the 2023 docket. And so using 18 days after September 11th, I arrived at a date of Friday, September 29th for the discovery deadline. And then 5 days after September 29th is October 4th, which is at the day after the scheduled date for the commissioners to hear the testimony and cross-examination of the consultant. So what I have in yellow, of course, means caution, and would love to know what the parties would like, how you would like to approach this schedule for docket numbers 2023-16E and 17E for the events that are listed over here in the left-hand column. Okay, Mr. Terraini.
I just have a minor thing. Are the noon deadlines important, or would it be okay to just make things due on those dates?
So one of the reasons that we mentioned the noon deadline, it depends on the due date, Mr. Terraini, to give the commissioners and technical and legal staffs enough time to review, because as you're aware, our electronic filing deadline for is midnight. And so if we don't ask that the testimony or documents are filed prior to midnight, the commissioners are walking in the next day, 10 o'clock, trying to conduct a hearing where they haven't had an opportunity really to review what's been filed. Does that make sense? That's the reason for. Now, we just want to give the commissioners and staff enough time to review what's been filed. Mr. Walsh, I'm sorry. Oh, Mr. Mushkin, thank you.
Hey, Jocelyn, could you put back up the second schedule for me?
Oh, okay, yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, so, one question I have, if you look at the last date, so you've got October 4th for responsive testimony, but then October 3rd.
Yes, I think, yes, Mr. Mushkin, that is the date that is in, I'm going to lay another document down for you to look at, okay? On the notice of filing and hearing for the two dockets, that is the day that appears. Oh, I'm wrong. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was what I was trying
Yes,
to figure out, I think. Yeah, I think this hearing date is October.
you're right. Should be October 9th. Thank you, Mr. Mushkin.
Yeah.
I'll look
so,
right at it and still use another date. Thank you.
So, one thing that I was thinking was, part of the, we've also got the hearing for the Dominion, LEI. I think it starts on October the 3rd, if I remember correctly. I think it may carry
Yes.
over to October 4th.
Yes.
So it would be nice if, since ORS is going to be involved in both of those dockets, and I know other parties may as well, although they may not have as much of an interest in the report, but it would be nice if we could do the testimony in the Duke case on October 5th, which I think would be a Thursday, and then that hearing would start on the 9th, which would be that Monday. So that would at least give us a day, hopefully maybe 2 days of breathing room in case we needed to file testimony, since we're going to have the same people in the Dominion hearing as we will in the Duke hearing. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you for pointing that out. I totally overlooked that. I just saw the 3rd and said to myself, that's not going to work. Yes, I think the 5th, and I don't think, because the 5th is on a Thursday, as you said, and the 9th is on a Monday. So if the testimony is filed without this condition of 12 noon, the commission will at least have one full day.
Right.
Now, that's my opinion. Is that the date? Is this the correct date? Is this the day the ORS, you said ORS is recommending the 5th, right, for the responsive testimony? What about this day, the 29th?
Yeah, and that actually, when I was kind of playing with numbers, that the 29th was the day that I had for the discovery deadline as well. I was kind of tracking what y'all did in Dominion.
Okay.
And just adjusted it a couple days. One thing that would be helpful if, since there's only 18 days in between the consultant's report being due on the 11th and then discovery responses being due on the 29th.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the Dominion order, I think y'all had also put, let me try to pull it back up. Y'all had put a deadline for the parties to serve discovery on LEI. So I would suggest adding in that case, you had done September 15th, but to kind of make it track, I would say September 18th for the deadline for the parties to serve discovery on LEI. And then you can keep the September 29 deadline for responsiveness. And by comparison, I'm looking at order number 2023-87-H, which is the hearing officer order in the Dominion avoided cause proceeding.
Okay, so, Mr. Mushkin, I'm going to move this to here. So September 18th, the deadline for the parties to serve discovery on LEI. And then this would change to, well, this would be including the consultant's deposition down here?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And just for clarity, I dropped in the chat the dates that I was proposing, so which I think tracks with the hearing officer order in Dominion that I mentioned to you.
I'm sorry, I'm new to this. When you say including the consultant's deposition by the 18th, do you mean notice of the deposition or having taken the deposition by the 18th?
think in the Dominion order, there was, and I think in the 2021 avoided cost proceeding, there was the concept of the parties could take the deposition of the third party consultant if they needed to. So I think if the way I read the Dominion order is if a party felt the need to take a deposition of LEI, that would be done by September 27th. In other words, all discovery would be concluded by September 27th.
And in this case,
I'm sorry, that's in Dominion. In this timeline, it would be September 29th.
okay, I just wanted to clarify that. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
And not to be a pest, but does the noon deadline matter in this deadline
Does the noon deadline?
for the 29th? Is there any reason to keep that?
Yeah, I don't.
Not for me.
We'll ask the others. I don't think so. We were in a tight time frame, Mr. Tarani, for the other docket. Yeah. For example, the deadline for the third party's responses to discovery, as Mr. Mushin just said. Well, first of all, the deadlines for the parties to serve discovery on the third party consultant was September 15th. And then no later than September 27th, the third party had to file responses to discovery and deadline for any deposition. So what I think I need to do, Mr. Mushin, is strike the deposition part down here and leave it up here, right? If we're going to make it consistent with the 2023-15 docket.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
I think you would just take the hearing officer order 2023-87H, and then I think you could just substitute the dates that are in that with what you have on your sheet.
Okay.
The question that we did have was, what is, and I don't know that if y'all have calculated it yet, but it's not clear to us when the Duke order would have to be issued or when the directive would have to be issued. I think Sam Welborn and I had talked about this, and it looked like, based on the 2021 docket, that y'all issued the order by kind of the end of October. So that was part of the reasons for these dates as well, was assuming that that it's kind of the same timeline. We have a couple of extra days than we did in the Dominion case, but it still seemed like a fairly abbreviated timeline. So that was part of the reason why, at least when I was coming up with these dates, was trying to stick in that time frame.
I'm trying to find that order now. So I'm in 2021-89.
It would have been the directive in dockets 2021-89 and 2021-90. The order was issued somewhat later, but the directive was issued October 27th, 2021.
October. I'm looking for it now.
At least that's what my notes say. I'm not looking at the DMS right now.
Okay, what in the world? Okay, so the order regarding avoided costs, let me look at the directive. You mentioned October.
Yeah, October 27th, 2021. I'm clicking on it to verify what I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. The reason why it's throwing me off a little is because I remember when we first started this in 2019, the order was around November. The deadline was around November. I see they've moved it up here with
I think
this.
the statute in that case, and you're right that it's a little, I guess, strange that it would have been moved up, but it was moved up about 2 weeks. The original language, or the language in Act 62 required that the first ruling, I guess, be within 6 months of the effective date of the act, and then 24 months thereafter.
Yep.
And so we went from November 15th, 2019 to October 27th, 2021.
You're right. You're right. Okay.
So assuming that's right, and then the time to act or to approve is 24 months, then I guess the commission would have to act by October 27th.
You're correct. That's right.
So we're still kind of in that tight time frame, but
Yep.
but this, I think this schedule would kind of conform to what y'all did in Dominion, and also still keeps that October 9 hearing date that had already been set.
Anybody opposed to moving that hearing date back to the 1st? I'm just teasing. Of October. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. But that's the date that's been established, October the 9th, in the notice. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Burns. Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Burns. I understand you have joined us.
Yes, thank you. I'm available.
Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Mushton, what I will do, I'm looking at the Dominion 2023-15E Standing Hearing Officer Directive dated July 26th. And what you're proposing basically is the deadlines, not the dates, but the deadlines, the information that's included in the deadlines be used for the dockets that we're discussing today, the due dockets. So, for example, September 15th was the deadline for the parties to file discovery on the consultant. In that docket, in this docket, it will be September 29th. And I'll ask, does it matter to you if that discovery deadline is effective by noon on that day? Does that matter?
I mean, I think to Charlie's point, it would probably make sense to delete the noon, because if we have a deposition, then it could, in theory, be at any time that day. But yeah, I think you would have your dates of September 11th is when the report's due. September 18th is the deadline for parties to serve discovery on LEI.
Mm-hmm.
September 29 is deadline for responses to discovery and deposition. October 5 would be the rebuttal, responsive testimony, and then the hearing would start on the 9th.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mushton. Let's move on now to, let me go back to Mr. Welburn. Do you agree with everything Mr. Mushton just said, Mr. Welburn?
Yes, ma'am. I think that makes sense. That we could work with that schedule.
Thank you. Let's see, I just did Mr. Mushton. Okay, now we'll move on to Mr. Burns. Do you agree with what is Mr. Mushton's representations?
We have no problem with the schedule as just discussed. I looked at the dates in the chat and that you wrote on. It looks fine to me. I think it's appropriate.
That's appropriate. Thank you. And you're speaking for Mr. Witt too, right? Mr.
I try to make sure that Mr. Witt agrees with me as much as I can. So if he doesn't, I hope he'll pipe up.
Okay.
No, of course, I do agree with Mr. Burns.
Okay. Mr. Terady.
We're good with it.
Wonderful. Ms. Mixon.
Yes, those dates work for us as well.
Wonderful. And Ms. Clancy, of course, is fine with what you've represented, Ms. Mixon. I think you said we. I'll move on. And and then Ms. Rainey and Mr. Mushton. Okay. Well, I will provide this information to our general counsel, everyone. Oh, I know one other thing. So I was asked to remind the parties about a policy that appears on the commission's website. It's under Ms. Purvis. Would you display what I have on the desktop, please? Thank you so much. So just as a very respectful reminder, everyone, under on our website, under laws and guidelines, and then policies and procedures, there is a policies and procedures, settlement policies and procedures document. And just ask if you would please just review that at your convenience, okay? All right, live stream producer Purvis, and everyone else. Mr. Welborn, do you have anything else to add before we close?
No, ma'am. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Mushton?
No, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you. Mr. Burns?
No, ma'am. Everything's good.
Wonderful. Mr. Terani?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Mixon?
Nothing else from us. Thank you.
All right. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.